Apple stocks are down, Microsoft stocks are down, and get your news from Starbucks. Tech News Tonight is next.
This is Twit.
This is Tech News Tonight, episode 386 for Wednesday, July 22nd, 2015. This episode of Tech News Tonight is brought to you by Wealthfront. Wealthfront is a low-cost automated investment service that is the most sophisticated way for you to invest your money. Whether you've got millions or you're just starting out, visit wealthfront.com/TN2 to sign up and get your free personalized investment portfolio. That's wealthfront.com/TN2. Welcome. I am Meg Maroney. Let's get to today's big tech news. Apple stock is in the toilet today. Well, not exactly in the toilet, but they did fall for the second straight day today, down 4.3% to $125.14. According to Bloomberg, this tumble wiped out $32 billion in market value. What are investors afraid of? Reported iPhone sales at 47.5 million units in the third fiscal quarter missed the 48.8 million shipments that analysts projected. Combine that with a revenue forecast for the current period that also fell short of projections. And today, Apple saw the steepest post-earnings share decline in extended trading since January 2013. That was back in Tim Cook's early days as CEO when investors doubted his ability to keep up Apple's pace of innovation and sales growth. Microsoft also announced its biggest ever quarterly loss yesterday, but today the Redmond company made news by launching a new app that aims to turn email into instant messaging. Send was released only on iOS today and will come out later on Android and eventually on, Windows Phone when they get around to it. For now, Send only works with Office 365 accounts for work or business. Mashable says it strips out everything you hate about email, no signatures, no subject lines, no salutations. If you've tried it and you care to comment, head over to the Tech News Tonight Facebook page and let me know what you think. Now, Starbucks wants to be the place where you get your news, from the New York Times at least. The ubiquitous coffee shop says the New York Times top news of the day, as well as a selection of other articles addressing key social, political, and economic issues, will be available for free via the Starbucks mobile app for the 10 million My Starbucks Rewards loyalty members. I don't have any idea what this is, but I'm guessing it's people who drink way too much coffee. In other Starbucks tech news, today the company announced they're partnering with ride-sharing Uber competitor Lyft to offer Lyft drivers and customers in the U.S. stars that will count towards food and beverages at Starbucks stores. Both of these benefits are part of the My Starbucks Award digital loyalty program. Coming up, Google under fire from the EU again. Deep Learning AI and Mark Bergen from Recode is here. But first, let's talk a little bit about investing. If you've been in the working world for a while, you probably have money scattered all over the place, from personal accounts, old job retirement accounts, joint accounts, and investment accounts. Now, I've been waiting to get my finances in order for a while, but I can't ever decide if I should use a financial planner from a bank or an independent financial planner, or just take it all and shove it into a tiny piggy bank. When I heard that Wealthfront was going to be an advertiser for this show, and when they started to explain to me what they do, I got really excited because it seemed like exactly what I needed. Unfortunately, I cannot use Wealthfront because they are a sponsor, and that would be a conflict of interest, but it would not be a conflict of interest for you. So let me explain to you what they explained to me. Traditional advisors charge huge fees between 1% and 3% of what you've got under management, plus hidden fees for transactions and changes. Wealthfront gives you access to long-term investment management, and you can get started investing today at a minimum of only $500. Signing up at wealthfront.com takes just a few minutes, and it goes right to work, monitoring your portfolios round the clock and taking action as soon as opportunity arises. So whether you've been investing for retirement or you're a different long-term goal, Wealthfront automatically rebalances your portfolio and reinvests your dividends, all commission-free. With Wealthfront, you pay 0.25% a year. That's 25 basis points, 0 commissions, and no hidden fees. So that's less than $5 a month to invest a $30,000 account. There are no additional charges for any of Wealthfront's services. So visit wealthfront.com/TN2 to sign up and get your free personalized investment portfolio. You'll see the customized allocation they recommend for your profile. And just for Twit listeners, if you sign up to invest, Wealthfront will manage your first $15,000 entirely free of charge, and that's for life. So claim your offer today at wealthfront.com/TN2. For compliance purposes, I have to tell you that Wealthfront Incorporated is an SEC-registered investment advisor. Brokerage services are offered through Wealthfront Brokerage Corporation, member FINRA, and SIPC. This is not a solicitation to buy or sell securities. Investing in securities involves risk, and there is a possibility of losing money. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Please visit wealthfront.com to read their full disclosure. The European Union has accused Google of violating antitrust laws in their search division and stifling rival mobile systems to benefit Android. And now Google might be facing another EU case, this one targeting their suite of ad products. Joining us to talk about this story and a few other bits of Google news is Mark Bergen, Associate Editor at Recode. Welcome, Mark.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So a report in the Financial Times says that 2 advertising tech companies are lobbying European Union officials to launch an antitrust investigation into Google's suite of ad products. What are these companies and what are their claims?
Sure. So the 2 that we know about are 2 programmatic ad technology companies, which is a fancy way of saying automated ad buying and selling called OpenX and AppNexus. And ad tech companies are famous for having terrible names. But basically, the claim is that Google, which sells a lot of display advertising through something called DoubleClick, basically requires their clients to use to buy other parts of Google's ad technology and maybe dissuades them from buying competitors.
So
right? And this is good.
This is basically a bundling argument, kind of same as the Android
It's similar
case.
to Android, yeah. Although like it's much more, it's not as much consumer facing, right? I mean, Android is pretty clear. Like, as a consumer, I know if I want Android, I'm using Google services. I don't necessarily know who's serving me this really targeted ad when I look at a website.
So similar to what Microsoft was, dealing with in the 90s, bundling Internet Explorer with Windows. But then for this, it's a little bit different. It's harder for like the average person to feel really sorry for these giant, programmatic ad companies, right?
Yeah, and I mean giant by certain measure, right? I mean, Google hasn't really revealed, and they don't break down their revenue. There's some estimates that DoubleClick and its other ad products made about $8 billion last year. I think OpenX, I should have researched this, but OpenX is around 100 million in revenue. They claim they're both private companies, and AppNexus is 250 million. So much, much smaller.
So do you think the EU has a good case that Google is locking clients into its products?
I don't think so, nor do I really think that the EU will be compelled to move. But the EU, unlike the FTC, is much more willing to listen to the argument that Google is hurting competing businesses. I think the FTC is much more interested in consumer harm, where in Europe they're a little more open to the idea that this is monopolistic. So in that sense, if the companies can actually demonstrate that there are cases in which in some of its client negotiations that Google is using anti-competitive practices, sure, I think, and the commissioner has certainly been willing to go after Google.
So is Google really doing anything different than Facebook is doing?
No, and I think that's going to be Google's response is that, maybe even, it's similar to the kind of the case with shopping and Android, right, where Google of 2-3 years ago was much more monopolistic in this space, where basically if you wanted to run a display advertising campaign on the internet, you most likely were going to go to Google. But now Facebook has something called Atlas, which is its targeting tool, and a lot of advertisers are moving to Facebook because what Facebook has that Google doesn't have is logged in user identification. So Facebook knows who you are all the time.
Right, and I guess it's sort of similar. In Facebook, you're constantly telling Facebook what you like, who you hang out with, where you live. You're doing the same thing with Google by your searches and your email and everything else that they own.
Yeah, true. But what Google doesn't have is basically the logged in user. And so Facebook can sell advertising across a series of sites based on if you're logged into Facebook, which a lot of people are all the time. Frankly, Facebook has, I guess this is kind of hard to demonstrate, but in conversations with advertisers, Facebook's a lot more aggressive, and they have a sales team that's much more seen as in step. And Google, I think, is almost seen as just been doing this for such a long time and not as aggressive in the space.
So back to the logged in user. I mean, I use Gmail, but I have an iPhone, and I use Google Maps. Am I a logged in user?
Yes, but I think across a lot of the sites, I think that what DoubleClick and the Google Suite doesn't necessarily know is your social ID, right? That's what Facebook has, and kind of the social graph. They know that you're logged in, but they also know how old you are, where you went to school, a lot of your interests, your social network, right, and your friends and your interests there. And Google certainly has, and what their selling point now, they're talking to advertisers around intent. They know kind of what product you're looking for. So that's been Google's recent pitch to advertisers is that the social data doesn't matter as much. We know precisely what consumers are looking for on the internet. Of course, the other big company that knows that is Amazon. And Amazon has always sort of had this potential to really also have a competitive product to Google with ad serving and display. I mean, Amazon basically has this wealth of data about users.
Mm-hmm. So, like you said, the FTC made a similar complaint, and then they dropped it back in March. Yeah. And then back in March, there were documents that surfaced that sort of implied, they surfaced accidentally. They implied maybe something fishy was going on, maybe like Google had some sway over the FTC, and that's why they dropped it. But do you believe that, or do you feel like this just wasn't a consumer issue, that's why the FTC dropped it?
Yeah, I think the FTC is going to come back against, they're talking about the Journal report.
Right.
That said there were some commissioners that were arguing it. And I think that the FTC has kind of put enough evidence, and the commissioner has kind of put this to rest. And I think, in some sense, like the changing world and now, and everything is based on a lot more on mobile and apps, really is to kind of to Google's benefit in this case, where they can make the argument that they're no longer as monopolistic as they once were, because it's not just Google anymore.
So you had a piece on Recode last week about deep learning AI and how it's taking over all the tech that we use every day. What is deep learning AI?
Sure, I should have this down really easily, but it's basically extremely simplistic, and I hope there are not any experts out there listening. But
no experts listen to this show at all.
It's a way in which you can train algorithms to process and recognize patterns across massive amounts of data. So essentially, this is what gives us the capacity to do Android and Cortana and Siri to do voice recognition. So when you have a conversation with your phone, it understands what you say. It's what Facebook is able to. Facebook can tag a photo of you before you do it, right? You upload a Facebook photo, and it basically can recognize your facial features and do this much more easily and without human programming. So previously, other types of AI or of computers that would do this kind of facial and photo recognition would require an engineer to input, right, to say that this is Mark, and I know this is Mark. But deep learning is a method in which the machine actually learns what I look like, and then can start to identify me in every single picture of me on the internet. If that makes sense.
It does make sense, and it's like all of the things about Google that I go back and forth. It's amazing that algorithms can do this. How lucky are we to live in a time when we have this kind of fast access to this information and all the wonderful uses? And then I am also completely freaked out when I think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a really strong case that Google is at its core a machine learning company. If you look at search, all the developments in search now, a lot of searches involving machine learning. You can start typing a box and it starts to autofill. That's machine learning. The car is machine learning, right? The fact that the car can have the sensors in the camera that can identify when it's driving that this is another car in front of me, this is a bicyclist, this is a pedestrian, this is a trash can. That's machine learning, and that's the computer instantaneously taking in a lot of data. Facebook in particular has that creepy component too, right? And Google Now, which is their personal assistant, the one that can kind of feed you information before you even know you wanted it. It's creepy, it's unnerving. And we're only moving faster in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, there was the timeline feature that was released today for, Google. You could go into your Google profile in the past and kind of see wherever you were. But I mean, they're really selling this as a benefit, like see it all the places you've traveled.
Yeah.
And it is a benefit, but also it's a little bit creepy to know that they know all the places I've been since, 2009.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. I've had a conversation with some of the advertisers that work for Google. So they're out with Google's ad campaigns, which are considered pretty good, right? Google has these really cute branding and trying to make itself very lovable. And part of the reason they spend money on marketing is because Google has a sense that if you surrender everything to them, it can make your life a lot better. But at the same time, there is this pervasive concern that you're surrendering everything to Google, and Google knows everything about you. And so they're really trying to walk that fine line. And this is that kind of feature where it's, they have to show the user benefit. And I mean, I imagine this is one where they're moving very carefully.
Right. I mean, the biggest one lately has been Google Photos, which has a huge user benefit. I love it. I mean, I love being able to have all my photos backed up, to be able to search them, to be able to, you know, it finds the best one. It makes things out of my pictures. It finds, you know, all the pictures of a particular person. But is there something that we should be frightened about, that we're giving all of these photos to Google? Like, are they using them? I know they say they're not using them for advertising, but are they using them to make like face prints of everyone?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, you know, I take it with a grain of salt that they're not using it for advertising. Google is a company that makes 90% of its money on advertising.
Right. They're not using our pictures in advertising, I guess, is what they've said, right? Like, they're not.
Yeah. And that, I mean, I think there is a sense of the company like trying to move to a different model beyond just advertising. I mean, it's certainly like still working for them well, and like their last earnings were phenomenal. And despite all their many challenges, they're still printing money in search advertising. So there's no need for them to start like monetizing the Photos product anytime soon. And you know, they certainly, Google has been a little bit more aggressive on some of its privacy controls. You know, I think Tim Cook has done an excellent job of positioning Apple vis-a-vis Google on this privacy stuff. And I think there was a case, I don't know if you saw this a few weeks ago, the really unfortunate incident of the African-American user who flagged that his friend was tagged as a gorilla, which some kind of used it. Certainly, like if Google had more engineers of color, they would probably be able to identify that problem earlier.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. Like, the first thing you say is like, well, it was an algorithm, it's not our fault. But yeah, you look a little bit deeper. And then there was the same thing where Google was accused of sexism in some ads. Like, they were serving different ads to men than to women, and particular ads for training for better jobs.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, machine learning, you know, they haven't been able to give like machine learning a liberal arts degree, if that's good.
Not yet. That's next.
Yeah. I mean, I think that in some sense with the AI stuff, you know, there's a little bit of frustration with the experts of the Skynet meme. You know, and I think there's certainly people like Elon Musk that are like ringing the bell about that we should have philosophical and ethical and policy discussions about AI. But you know, the technology is not. It's so new and nascent that we're nowhere near like self-awareness for robots.
Well, you've been covering Google for Recode for the past few months. I mean, I can't imagine a more fascinating company to cover right now. Do you cover any other subjects for Recode?
It's kind of like Googly universe. So, you know, AI, there's you know, kind of talking with Baidu, which is a fascinating company. It's been called like China's Google. I think is doing some interesting stuff that's just different. You know, they're also investing in Uber. There are some ad technology companies that are kind of chipping away at Google. A few, although a lot of them, not many. And I think there's the other industry that Google is moving into is like satellite imaging. And that's a really fascinating space now where you have a lot of potential to kind of use Googly like things like just gathering and organizing data about the satellite images that no one's ever done before. Of course, if, you know, Google acquired one of the companies in that space and is invested in another, and Google typically like is able to invest in one company and compete against it with the other hand. That, you know, so there's not many things that they don't have their fingers in.
Right. Well, thank you so much. Mark Bergen is an associate editor for Recode, and thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That's it for this edition of Tech News Tonight. We are on Facebook. You can find us there, Tech News Tonight. Look for the number 2 and like us to get links to the show when it's posted and the stories we talk about. And if you want to be part of the conversation, you can post a comment on the stories that we post. We'll read the best ones right here on this show. And you can also subscribe to the show at twit.tv/TN2. You can also subscribe at iTunes, at TuneIn, at Spotify, all kinds of places. Write to us at TN2 at twit.tv if you have something to add to the show or you just want to make a comment. And of course, you can watch live every weekday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. And don't miss our morning news program, Tech News Today, every weekday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm Megan Maroney. Thanks for watching.
Bandwidth for Tech News Tonight is brought to you by CashFly.com.